Welcome to Small Business Accelerator, the podcast where we help small businesses create more new opportunities and win more new business. Today's topic is Get the Messaging Right. Join our hosts, Blair Carey, founder at InsideCRO, and David Wuensch, founder of EPOCH Sales Management Solutions, as they dig deep with today's guest from B3 Advisors, Mitch Alverson. Mitch is a StoryBrand Certified Copywriter and Guide. He focuses on delivering clear messages.
Well, hey, Mitch, again, we appreciate you taking time to join us today. Blair and I have together put together a Small Business Accelerator podcast series. It's in conjunction with some other things that we're working on here at EPOCH Sales Management Solutions around helping build better all-bound sales teams to create more new opportunities. Within that process of building better all-bound sales teams, in the first stage of that, there's 4 foundational elements that we typically talk about. One of them is getting the mindset and culture right for new business development. One is getting the targeting right. One is determining the right sales roles for the members of sales teams. And another one is getting the messaging right. And that's part of today's topic as far as getting the messaging right. You and I have had conversations before about building a story brand and its power. And we've entertained some discussions also around the idea of, how does one take the advantages of building a story brand and Chet Holmes' stadium pitching core story and Mike Weinberg's company sales story as different areas. So, but, maybe you, for our listeners could just start off with a little bit about, what it is, I guess the importance of messaging to start with. When we talk about getting the messaging right, just starting with, why is that important and why does it matter?
Sure. Well, the truth is that most companies are wasting a lot of money on their marketing. They're putting lots and lots of money into it. And a lot of it, you could just roll down the window and throw it out. And mainly because they're not being clear in their marketing. So that's the biggest reason. I think it's, so many companies, especially in the small to medium size, they try to jump to like branding when they really don't have they don't have the brand yet to do that. I was driving home from a little trip to Arkansas and saw some billboards of they're for McDonald's, and you could tell it's the McDonald's brand. It's got the red and orange, and then it just says "You missed us." And a company like McDonald's, that's in the billions of dollars of revenue, they can do that stuff, but most companies cannot do that. We have to be clear, and the reason is because our brains, the human brain, whether we know it or not, is tasked with doing a couple really important jobs. One is helping us stay alive, and the other is conserving calories so it can help us stay alive, which forces us as marketers and as salespeople to just be clear in what it is that we're offering, the problem that we're solving. So that's kind of the gist of it. You have to have a good, clear message if you're going to be successful. So that's sort of where I start with people, is to say, look, a lot of folks come to me because they are wasting their money. They're they're spending money on marketing. It's not working. And so the very first place we start is, okay, what are you actually saying? How are you being clear? That's the biggest thing.
Mike, Mitch, do you think that is because they just see marketing as a bunch of things that you do, or they just see what sort of the marketing media that's used today, whether it's billboards or sandwich boards or postcards or emails or radio ads, they just see what's being pitched at them? Or do you think it's the cause for that sort of disconnect is because small business owners are generally doing multiple things at a time, right?
Yeah, I think that's part of it for sure, is that they're seeing a lot of things, like you said, out in the wild and on various social channels, and they want to copy that. That's part of it for sure. There's another big paradigm shift that I try and help clients make, and that's to be the guide and not the hero. And so I don't know if I should say this or not, but I was going to say it's been sort of for decades, right? Is to tell them all about yourself and, how you got into business and how your grandpa started the company in, 1950, whatever. And in reality, because of what I said earlier about what's going on in the brain, they don't care about that stuff. That's not the first thing that they care about. And so one of the big paradigm shifts as to what you were saying is to try and get companies to stop talking so much about themselves in the way that they're doing it. It's not a bad thing to talk about yourself. But if that's what you lead with, then you really have a problem. It's funny, while driving in these billboards, I also saw a billboard, and I meant to take a picture of this because I passed it a couple of times. We were in Arkansas. I was helping a dentist in Arkansas. But there's this big billboard, and it's got these two guys in tuxedos and, good looking guys, young guys. And it says, Arkansas's most interesting lawyers. And that's all it said. But the problem, it's like, well, what kind of lawyer are you? Can you help me, with my car wreck? Can you help me with my divorce? Can you help? What is it? But that billboard, I promise you, is a total waste of money because, first of all, there's no name, there's no messaging. It just says Arkansas's most interesting lawyers. So if you're listening, guys, reach out. I can help.
So I think that's one of the messages we keep trying to tell everybody is one of the biggest principles is make it about them. And first and foremost, so that we connect with them. Right.
Right. Yep.
But part of it is how it's not just making it about them, but what's some of the keys in how to make it about them.
Sure.
When we're talking about them, what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, we really have to figure out, and this is where the internal work has to happen, is what is it that they even want? And we have a pretty good idea, usually, of what our customers want. But, that's the work. What is it that they really want when they are going to do business with you? Who is it that they want to become on the other side of doing business with you? What's that identity like? Right. And then, yeah.
So I usually, in talking with my clients, we try to get around the focus around or connecting on what are their challenges, issues, pains, things of that sort. I mean, how does that fit into the StoryBrand framework?
Sure. Yep. So right after the work of figuring out who it is that they want, what do they want, who do they want to become, after having done business with you, is what is it that's keeping them, from getting what they want. That's the most human way to say it. If you understand what they want, what's the problem that's keeping them from getting what they want? Now, we talk about problems and pains and things like that. You have to go deeper than just what's keeping them from getting it. Okay. If this thing that's keeping me from getting what I want, how does that make me feel? So now we have two levels of problems, right? We have an external problem. The internal problem is how it makes me feel. And then you can even go, this is pro level, philosophically, why is that a problem? Why is it just plain wrong that your client, your prospective customer can't get it, and that they feel the way they feel because they can't get it? And so speaking philosophically, we can say things like, we believe you deserve X, Y, and Z, or it shouldn't be that way, that sort of thing. So yeah, when you say, talking about those problems, that's the main thing to do is figure out why is it that they can't get what they want? How does that make them feel? And why is that just plain wrong?
So so help me understand this, Mitch. I'm a small business owner. I've been successfully running my business for the last 8 to 10 years. I'm now going into a new market, whether it's a new geographic market or a new area where I'm taking my existing product offering and I'm going to a new place. Where do I start on the messaging side here?
So if you're going into a new place, I would ask some questions around, how are you going to reach those folks in the new place? Do you want to do it, digitally, or is it going to be, like we talked about before, outdoors, things like that, from a perspective of how you go about doing it. But if we're moving into a new spot, this is actually something we just talked about with the dentist in Arkansas. Part of his messaging was based around science-based evidence, right? Well, right now in America, in Arkansas, if you lead with science-based stuff in your marketing, you're probably not going to do that well, just because, science has taken a hit. Doesn't matter which side of the political, fence you stand on, it has. And so that's one of the things I was telling him. It was like, look, in this area, you can't be saying the science is in, this is the reason why you should get your teeth fixed.
Right.
It's just not going to work. So I think you have to, if we're moving into a new area, let's think about who's there, which part of the United States that are there, which goes back to the whole character. Who are they? What do they want? So I think that's where we can start to tweak things depending on what it is that what our offer is, or whatever your product or service might be.
And if you're offering a completely, like, an extension of your existing services, do you take some of the existing messaging that you're using, or would you craft entirely different messaging?
No, I would say use as much as you can. That's what I would say. Take what you've got and let's see, depending on the budget, the size of the client, you can, we can test this stuff, right? You can put it out there and see what traffic is like based on the marketing that we're doing. So depending on budget and how we're getting traffic to say a landing page or whatever we're doing, we can test that stuff. So,
all right.
So Mitch, I guess for our listeners, what are some other things about the StoryBrand framework that makes it work? I mean, if you could maybe elaborate a little bit on the StoryBrand framework itself and why it does work in areas that we haven't covered so far.
Sure. Well, we've been talking a lot about it without really explicitly saying it, but we're using a story-based framework. And story is a sense-making device for our brains. And so essentially, when we start talking about what the client wants and what's keeping them from getting it, we're inviting them into a story. And the whole StoryBrand framework is built around really the hero's journey. That's like over 2,000 years old. And that's what it's built around. So if we build our marketing that way, where we're talking about what it is that they want and how we can help them get it and what's keeping them from getting it, just that framework alone is going to make your marketing better. There's a few other things, right, it's not, specific to just StoryBrand, but one of the things I'll tell people to do, and it's in the framework, is to use first of all, give your clients an easy to follow plan. 3 steps, 4 steps maybe, but probably 3. Step 1, step 2, step 3. That's the thing, is that most people really do want you to tell them, what do you want me to do next? And if we can show them, guys, there's the promised land. We've already foreshadowed success in our messaging, and it's easy to get there. It's just step here, and then you're there. And so using story as a framework, giving them an easy, 1, 2, 3 plan. And then this one is so simple, but most people don't do it. And that's a challenge for our listeners, is where in your current marketing do you have calls to action? Just a very simple, clear call to action. not a passive call to action, a direct call to action. Call now, schedule a meeting, buy now. Those are direct, right? And I would also challenge folks to think about this. What's the last, sales email that you wrote? And did you have a call to action? Because unless we're being intentional about it, it really is, it can slip our mind. Do we have a good call to action in all of our stuff, in our marketing collateral, in our emails? You just need it. And so in the StoryBrand Marketing Framework, a direct call to action it's part of it. It's one of the main key pieces. And in thinking about story, all the great movies that you see, right? There's a call to action. There's a guide who comes along to help the hero, and he asks them to do something. Obi-Wan Kenobi tells Luke, use the Force. That's the call to action. In Rocky, I think it's in Rocky 3, right? Where he thinks he can do all this fancy training in Las Vegas. And finally they say, Rocky, this is not going to work. We have to go away. So there's a call to action to move him to a different place geographically to train so that he can focus. So it's the same in our marketing. We have to have a clear call to action.
So you bring up call to action. I agree off that, but in sending an email, isn't one of the simplest call to actions just to have a question mark? I mean, to send an email with no questions is like no call to action, right? I mean, simply by inserting 1 to 3 questions in an email, haven't you in essence improved the call to action?
100%. Yeah. Questions open story loops. And so that if you've got a good intentional question in your emails to prospective clients, then absolutely. It opens a story loop that they want to close, especially if they're, a good prospect. And the chances are they're going to reply. And now we've got, now we're into selling, right?
That's interesting. So you mentioned about being intentional in our marketing motion and messaging. So one of the things that we like to do is we like to make sure that people are purposeful, that they know the reason why they're actually sending this email, what the expected outcome is, or the expected phone call is, what the purpose is for each one of those pieces of content that go out there. When you're building the story, the hero in the story is our prospect. Is that correct, Mitch?
That's correct. Yeah.
So we're trying to make them the hero, and we're going to help them, guide them to that particular situation. Is that fair?
That is absolutely fair. Yep, that's right.
Right. And so realistically, as the guide, we have the expertise to help them not only understand the challenges that they're going to face, but also in some small way, how to overcome them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And then so we could have content that's part of our messaging that actually has no call to action, but could be towards building that credibility as us as the expert guide, or shining a light on the challenge that the hero actually faces.
Yep. Yeah. So to expand on that, you really hit the high points right there where when we talk about the guide, we want to speak with empathy, that we understand, you said that we understand the challenge that's going on. Mm-hmm. And then we want to speak with authority. So there's a fine line there. We tell folks, stop talking about yourself so much. Mm-hmm. It's not that we can't talk about ourselves. We need to talk about ourselves in light of the customer's story, and that right. We do know we are experts in what it is that we're doing, mm-hmm. And that we can help you. We can show you how to get to the promised land. Yeah.
So in this story, I mean, first of all, we're getting to the point where we're looking for those prospects to work connected, and that they're headed in a particular direction, and we understand the direction they want to go and what it is they want. We also understand the obstacles along the way, and we're communicating both of those. And then it comes to that part of positioning ourselves as the best guide to help them get to where they want to go. Right.
Right.
So of course, I heard a discussion the other day about the difference about, providing a unique answer, unique versus differentiation. And I think really, for many of us, I mean, to truly be unique, you know, maybe be beyond what we're going to be able to do, but we can differentiate. And I think that's maybe working on differentiators is maybe the better term along the way. But one of the questions I've got, well, you know, we also hear people telling us that, you know, let your prospects and customers know your why. Mm-hmm. So where does telling your why fit into this whole equation? I mean, what's the value of telling your why? How do you do that? How do you work that in along with a StoryBrand framework?
Yeah. So the why of, you know, why we're doing things a lot of time can fit in that philosophical, answering the philosophical problem as to why it's just plain wrong that our prospects are dealing with the problem that they're dealing with. Then, and also the why kind of fits into really the whole mission-based story of why we're even doing what we're doing. So I look at the why and look at it from the philosophical standpoint of that really helps us solve that problem, and where we can talk about that. But then also I'll try to build the why into story for the mission statement of the company. We're not here today to talk so much about mission statements, but using story to really build up and beef up the mission as to why you're doing things helps tremendously, right? It helps you get people on board to do what you're doing. It helps people want to invest in what you're doing. So in a sense, I guess we're always selling, but that, you know, story in and of itself can be brought into the why of the overall company and help tremendously.
Okay.
So how would you communicate that in a way that would be effective to the prospects?
Communicate which part?
The why, the why. I mean, other than the About Us section on our website, which might describe why we're actually doing what we're doing, mm-hmm. How would we incorporate that within the story that we're trying to tell the customers, our prospects?
Yeah, so that's where I would put it. Honestly, I would put it in the About Us page or section, mm-hmm. And that's where you can expand a little bit on what you're doing. Other mm-hmm. than that, I would put it in the philosophical problem where, you know, we talk about why it's just plain wrong or why it shouldn't be this way, as to the problems that they're dealing with. So that's right. where I would always put it. And again, at the risk, right, of us slipping into the hero seat, that's where the fine line is. How much do we talk about our why? Because if we're going based on what's going on in the brain, this why question happens a little further down the funnel, right? Uh-huh. If I think you, Blair, if I like you and I think you can help me, maybe somewhere along the line I'll say, okay, what's Blair all about? And why is it, why are they even doing what they're doing? But originally, that's not what I'm coming to you for. I'm coming to you because you can help me solve this problem that I have. Uh-huh. So that's why, when I think about the why, to me, it's further down the funnel where I want to talk about the why.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. I kind of, Chad mentioned this sort of earlier, companies that are going into new markets. So companies that don't really have a lot of customers, they're sort of starting up in their sort of startup phase. They're a small business in their startup phase, and they're trying to figure out or trying to go towards where they think are their prospects. What would you recommend to design your messaging for those types of companies?
Well, again, I think it's a question around. I think there's a good bit of like, if I'm a startup, right, I've got to do a good bit of research up front to figure out who this, what's the avatar? What do they want? Mm-hmm. And then let's design it around that. So if we can figure that stuff out, it really helps us build our messaging around that, who that person is, right? That's what I would say the most is let's figure out who that person is and what they want.
Right. Look at the challenges that they're facing. And then from those challenges, help us design how we can make them the hero.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a lot of times it's, unless you've got a really niche thing, or if you're, say you're building messaging for a specific product, you have to bubble up a little bit to sort of an umbrella level of messaging, and go at it that way. Unless we're doing messaging for a specific product or a very specific solution service, then we can really do some more direct messaging. Otherwise, you have to bubble it up. A lot of people are familiar with Dave Ramsey and Financial Peace. So I would say his brand, his umbrella is Financial Peace. And underneath that umbrella, he's got multiple products and services that people can buy from them. And so when I think about the messaging, he's got an overall message, and then he's got little silos of messaging for each one of those offerings and services that he offers.
Interesting. That's a very interesting way to think about that, Mitch.
Yeah.
So Mitch, for the small business owners out there that say, you know, I probably need to do a better job of communicating my message and story. I mean, what are ways available to them to better learn the StoryBrand framework and apply it? To start with, to their website. I mean, as a way to, because they control the website. I mean, that's a very controllable, medium to use. So
yeah,
what's available to them to learn, follow, and produce the StoryBrand framework?
Yeah. So I guess the path I would give folks is first buy the book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. That's step one. Step two would be it's mystorybrand.com. And there they've got a free tool you can use to build your brand script. That's what we call it. And then the third thing I would do if I was, sort of in that boat, is there's another sort of the second book that Don wrote in this realm is called Marketing Made Simple. In that book, he kind of gets you more practical stuff around, wireframing your website, building a sales funnel. So that's the three things I would do if I wanted to really start to incorporate StoryBrand or story into my marketing messaging. Building a story brand, go get a free account at mystorybrand.com, and then also buy Marketing Made Simple, the book.
Now, in making things simple, I've give Donald Miller credit, or whoever helped Donald Miller do it. But on the website, mystorybrand.com, how more simple could it be? For each step, there's a little arrow you can click, and it's a 2 to 7 minute video on how to apply that step in the StoryBrand framework. I mean, talk about a step-by-step walk everybody through it. I give him credit for making that simple with respect to that. Of course, the other thing is, business owners, if you want to go through that, find yourself a certified StoryBrand consultant to help you make that happen. I mean, Mitch, if somebody wants to hire you to do that, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You can go, my website is the letter B, the number 3, advisors.org. So it's b3advisors.org. You can email me, Mitch at b3advisors.org. I have a daily business podcast that you can also listen to. So you can look that up. If you just search for Mitch Alverson, you'll find that podcast.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks very much, Mitch. That's tremendous.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Anything else you'd like to share before we go?
I don't think so. I think well, maybe there is. Getting your marketing messaging clear is probably one of the biggest things you can do. And with some of these resources, for less than, $30 or $40 in books, you can really make a difference in what you're putting out there to the world. So go for it. It's really going to help you clarify what you're saying so that customers will engage.
Well, thank you very much, Mitch. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Take care, Mitch.